Well, the war on ISIS, the U.S. now joining with Turkish forces in Syria, putting pressure on ISIS. Military forces there attempting to cut off the terror group's supply routes. Vice President Biden also meeting with Turkish President Erdogan in Turkey to help smooth relations after last month's failed coup to former commander of the Middle East during the Iraqi war, Anthony Zinni. Commander, thanks for joining us. Let's talk first about this U.S.-Turkey joint effort. I can't get a handle on where Turkey is. One week Erdogan is in Russia with Putin, and the next week we're helping him out. How essential is it, and what does this mean, this latest shift?
Well, Turkey's a critical ally, and our relationships are obviously not very good. I think that's why you see the vice president there. This offensive is a reaction to the terrorist attacks inside Turkey, too. I think one thing we have to be very careful about, though, is we have Kurdish allies that are fighting against ISIS, and they aren't necessarily friendly with Turks, and their efforts inside Syria may turn in that direction. So I think it's very important, since we probably have U.S. Special Forces with them, that this is carefully coordinated. And I think that might be another message that Vice President Biden is bringing to Erdogan.
Well, doesn't this also bring up the major conundrum? The enemy of my enemy is often my enemy when it comes to this whole thing. And how do you put a blueprint in place? I know once there was talk of maybe breaking Iraq up into 3 countries and promising the Kurds the territory in the north to appease them and to, relieve our pressure and anxiety with Turkey. How do we resolve this in Syria and in Iraq?
Well, I think the first thing we have to do is defeat ISIS and other extremist groups, radical Islamic groups in that region. That's number one. Number two, then, is to sort out this political question. And it may mean that this World War I structure, the Sykes-Picot Agreement, doesn't work. You can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And we might have to look at some sort of creation of things like emirates that more reflect cohesion in terms of ethnicity and religious status, and maybe has some loose federation, confederation above it. And there are models in the region, like the United Arab Emirates, that could be used for this, and may be more reflective of the cultural issues and more acceptable as an end state than trying to reestablish Iraq or Syria as a sovereign nation.
General, I want to switch gears just a little bit. The U.S. Army is confirming now that a training lesson labels Hillary Clinton as, quote, an insider threat due to her handling of classified information, or should we say mishandling. Will a President Clinton actually put our national security at risk?
I think we have to worry about any top leaders that have misused or abused the handling of classified material. I had a TSSCI clearance, and I still do, and I've been periodically polygraphed because of it. That means that even if you're a top leader, it's important to understand that you're taking the right care with this classified material. I wish we had done that with Secretary Clinton. Maybe the machine would have broken, but at least we know if we had violations. I think there's been too much of a cavalier attitude in responding to these charges. This is serious. Dismissing these things is not important. Somebody else did it in the past. Little small C's in front of the paragraph don't mean anything. This is ridiculous. This is our national security that's at risk.
Commander, if she were to become commander-in-chief, though, and you're a young enlisted military in the military, and you've seen these manuals and you have this sort of animosity toward her, would that hurt her ability to lead the military?
I think you have to realize that our troops understand the position of commander-in-chief, and they're able to take the politics and the personalities out of it. Their leadership is immediately in front of them, when you start talking about sergeants and captains and others up the chain. The expectation, though, from the senior military leaders, and what they should demand, is the same respect for handling of classified materials and making judgments that they have to ensure that they're capable of. The commander-in-chief is a position, a military position, like being the general. And you have the same obligations. It isn't different just because you wear a skirt or a suit.
General, Donald Trump has been fine-tuning his border policy, and now we're hearing that terrorists, at the same time, we're hearing that terrorists are starting to target specifically our southern border. So Do we need to get tougher on the border, and how probably should that be implemented, because it's a complicated situation?
Well, first of all, I think any nation has to control its borders, especially in an environment where there are security threats that could come into our country. And, you know, as we've seen here and as our European allies and others have seen, lack of control of your borders and access to your country creates vulnerabilities, and you could pay a big price for this. We have, and so has France and Belgium and others. How we do it, I think we need to take the advice of our Border Patrol, of those that are responsible for maintaining this security, give them the resources, the assets, and the procedures and processes and political support they need to construct the right kind of security. Now, whether that's physical barriers or that's greater intelligence, that's more Border Patrol personnel that are patrolling, that should be determined by the experts. But it's essentially critical for us to have that kind of control.
General Zinni, thank you very much. Really appreciate all your expertise and wisdom this afternoon. Thank you.